This is the Renault Zoe, and it's a bit like an electric scooter in the way that it's perfect for urban transport. It's cheap to run and you can refuel it by plugging it in at home. Now, Renault has actually recently updated the Zoe to give it some new technology, tweak the design slightly, and they've also fitted a better battery and motor. And in this video, I'm going to tell you if it's better than a Peugeot E208 or a Mini Electric, and whether you should buy one.
Buying a new car? Head to CarWow to get offers from the UK's top dealers. carwow.co.uk, the car buying comparison site.
Let's start this video by talking about the price. So the Renault Zoe starts from £29,495. However, you get a £3,000 grant from the government to go towards that, so you're only paying just over £26,000. But if you buy it through CarWow, you can save even more money, an extra £3,000 something pounds, because the total saving you can get through CarWow, including that government grant of £3,000, is £6,746 off one of these Renault Zoes. So if you want to check out more information on the Renault Zoe and see how much money you can save through our trusted dealers, click on the pop-out banner up there to go to the CarWow website, carwow.com. One of the things about the Renault Zoe is that it doesn't look overtly like an electric car. It's more just a modern hatchback, and it's looking more modern since Renault did some changes to the exterior design in mid-2019. So they gave it some new headlights, new chrome strip here to make it look posher, some more aggressive lower bumper with air intakes there and some breathers for over the wheels there to improve the aerodynamics. It's quite a decent looking car actually. From the side, the Zoe looks the same as before, so it's a hatchback. That's about it. I do like these creases though. Crease out the front and the one at the back look pretty cool. And the fact that there's no door handle that you can see on the rear door, but more about that later. Now, as standard, you get 15-inch alloy wheels, but then as you move up the range, you get 16s. And then with the top of the range car, you get these diamond cut alloy wheels, which look lovely. One thing to point out though, is that on the entry-level car, you don't get body coloured door mirrors, which looks a bit cheap. And this range topping version does make things look a little bit cooler with blacked out rear windows, which makes it look very street. I'm not sure about this at all. To try and make it look like this is all one piece of glass, Renault has stuck some black plastic here. It's just a sticker over the door. Look at it. That's crap. Round the back, the only real noticeable changes that Renault has made to the Zoe is to include some horizontal stripes in the rear LED brake lights. And that's it. Otherwise, it's the same as before, which means it's sort of featureless. Now, I complain about manufacturers fitting fake vents to cars, and I can now see why they do it, because if you don't, like Renault hasn't done really for this Zoe, you just get expanses of plastic and it's bland. That's really kind of upset my entire world view. I was dead against like fake vents, but now I'm not so sure. One of the biggest changes to the Zoe is that Renault has increased the battery capacity by 25%. So it now has 52 kilowatts, which means you can get a range of up to 245 miles, which is quite a lot. To charge it, you have to get to the port underneath the badge on the front, which I quite like. It's a nice design feature. And then you can charge it if you want to from a traditional 3-pin socket, but that'll take you like 37 hours. So you're not going to do that. More likely use a 7 kilowatt wall charger, then that'll take about 8.5 hours, so you can do it overnight. The quickest you can charge it is up to a 50 kilowatt charger, and that will take just an hour and a half from 0 to completely full. Now, you can get the Zoe with 2 motors. Oh, look, gas struts, that's quite posh. Like I was saying though, 2 motors. The entry level motor is 107 horsepower. This one has a range topping motor, which is new. It's 135 horsepower. It drives the front wheels via a 1-speed automatic gearbox. And that's all you need to know, really. This 135 horsepower Renault Zoe should be able to do 0 to 60 in 9.5 seconds, but I'm going to test it with my specialist timing gear here. So just holding on the brake, and now I'm going to accelerate and see how quick it really is. Smooth, steady, and constant. That's me describing the acceleration. And there's your 60 miles an hour. Renault are bloomin' liars. Absolute bloomin' liars. The cheeky buggers, look. 0 to 60, 8.37 seconds. That's like a whole second quicker than they said. Here on the inside, Renault's completely redesigned the Zoe's cabin, though it doesn't really look that much more modern than before. The standout feature is the new infotainment screen. So on the top of the range version, you get this portrait style. On models low down the range, you get a slightly smaller screen, but it's still fine. This is what it looks like actually. See. It's okay, isn't it? All models do get a digital driver's display. Now, later on in this video, I'll actually do an in-depth review on this technology, but let's continue with the cabin. So you've got squidgy materials here, which is quite nice, though here it's all kind of hard and scratchy. Here it's hard and scratchy, here it's hard and scratchy. I'm also not a fan of this. This armrest is quite hard, it's not padded, and then there's not even one here, so you can't rest this arm, which is a bit annoying really. I'll tell you what's also annoying. Renault has moved the cruise control buttons to the steering wheel, which is good. They used to have them on like levers behind the steering wheel, but they've still got the stereo controls behind the steering wheel, so it's hard to see what you're doing when you're trying to alter the stereo, so you just do it on the touchscreen. Pointless. Why don't they change that? It's about time really. Now let's move on to the driving position. So lots of adjustment in the steering wheel, which is good. What's not so good are the seats. Now I like the look of them, this one-piece design, pretty cool. I also like the fact that this leather is faux leather, so no animals have been killed. Also the fabric is recycled, so that's nice and green as well. What's not so good though is that the fact that the batteries are underneath the floor and they sit underneath the seats, so they raise the seats up. You'll probably see here, look. As a result, Renault's decided to not give you height adjustment for the driver's seat. So if you're really small, you won't be able to raise it up, and if you're really tall, you won't be able to lower it down. And look, headroom's okay for me, but it might be a little bit tight if you're tall, so that's something to consider. Another thing to consider is that the seats are, well, they're lacking in any kind of support. They're all a bit squidgy and soft and feel cheap, to tell you the truth. You have a similar problem here in the back seats as you do in the front. Once again, batteries being underneath the floor means that these seats are quite raised up. If you look at this, the distance between the floor and the seat base isn't that great, so you do feel like you're sitting with your knees rather high, and then you don't have much under thigh support, which gets on your nerves on longer journeys. Another thing that might be annoying if you need to carry passengers in the back who are quite tall, look, knee room isn't great, and if I sit up straight, my head is pretty much touching the roof, so anyone over 6 foot is going to really struggle for headroom, and this bit kind of like arches in as well, so if you've got 3 sat in the back at once, it's going to be really quite a squeeze. They're going to be pushing their heads up against there, and as you can see on the middle seat, it's not great. Even though this middle seat is actually surprisingly comfy, and there's not much of a hump in the floor either, so there's plenty of room for people's feet. There's another thing that annoys me about sitting in the back of the Zoe, and it's the integrated headrest. Means that it's just a little bit harder to see at the front windscreen, which means you might be a bit more likely to get travel sick. At least you get a good view out the side windows because the window ledges are low, and if you are feeling sick, look, the windows go all the way down, which is handy if you need to vomit, because then you won't get any splashback. Something else I've noticed, I do rather like the patterning on this roof here. It's unusual. Just thought I'd mention that to take your mind off the vomit thing. Right, let's move on to the Zoe's boot, which is actually a decent size. The capacity is 338 litres, which is more than a Peugeot E208, more than a Vauxhall E-Corsas, and more than a Mini Electrics by quite some margin actually. It's a nice square shape, and underneath the load cover you can fit 6 carry-on size suitcases, which is really good. Now, you obviously have to have your charging cables in the boot, which do take up space, and if you want to take them out, you've got to lift them over this load lip, which is fairly large, and you probably notice, look, all exposed metal, so it does feel a little bit cheap in this boot area when you consider this isn't actually that cheap to buy, and practicality in here is only so you've got a hook there, but there's no underfloor storage or anything like that. And if you want to carry longer items, you need to fold down the rear seats. There we go. And the seat belts do snug on them the whole time. And another problem you have, as I'll illustrate now with my electric scooter, is this hump in the floor, so you can't just roll it to the front of the car. Come on. And it all just lies a bit kind of awkwardly like that, doesn't it? So that's not ideal. Let's finish off talking about the Zoe's practicality by going through the in-car storage spaces. So you have a little tray here on the dash, which is quite handy. Look, cameraman Jack has kept his battery pouch there, and it's got a grippy surface so things won't fall out. The glove box though is rubbish. Look, can't even fit the car's manual in there, just won't fit. Now, if you're watching from mainland Europe, you won't have this problem. It's because the fuse box is over here on right-hand drive cars. So, sod the British, eh? Thank you very much for that, Renault. Now, cup holder wise, they're quite big, so like smaller bottles are going to rattle around in there, but big cups of coffee are just fine. You've got a pad here, which is grippy yet again for your mobile phone. Perfect. There's another one here, but look, it's not quite big enough for the larger mobile phones like my Galaxy S10 Plus. You have 2 USB ports there, an aux in, and an old-fashioned 12-volt charging socket if you want to use that. Then there's the door bins, which look here in the front, they can hold a large bottle, which is good. Moving into the back though, they can't hold one of these kind of bottles. Look, nope. So I'll just grab that. That's all they can hold. Just about squeeze in. Oh, Now you've got two USB ports down here, which is handy for charging mobile devices here in the back. Less handy is the fact that the pouch on the back of the front passenger seat doesn't open at the top, it opens at the side, so things are likely to fall out when you go around the corner quickly. And there isn't even one on the back of the driver's seat for some reason. And that brings me on to 5 annoying things about the Renault Zoe. The driving mode selector is a bit frustrating to use. The most annoying thing is the fact that it doesn't have a park button. So you have to go into neutral when you want to be stationary, and it's a bit fiddly to do it, and you often can move past it into drive and then reverse. And it's much easier to just have a button you can press. Another problem with it is that you cannot get that right and then go to get out of the car and then start moving forwards. You know, I said that you could charge the car at 50 kilowatts. Well, you have to pay £1,000 to enable that feature, otherwise it'll only charge at 22 kilowatts, and then it'll take 3 hours instead of an hour and a half to charge from empty to full. The load cover in the boot is unnecessarily awkward to remove. So pop it out like that. Oh, come on. And then it gets wedged against the boot and you can't pull it this way, so you have to push the headrest down like that, and then you have to move it forward, and if someone's sat there you're just going to annoy them slightly like that, and then you can get it out. And if you want to store it in the boot, then it's just in the way again, so you know what I'm going to do. Yeah, it's going to have to go flying. I broke it. The rear door handles are actually a horrible design. You have to open them like that, and it's just like this horrible, cheap, plasticky flap, which is just so awkward. And I hate the way that they've done a little thumbprint there just to remind you how to do it. Like after you did it the first time, you're going to completely forget. Yeah, it's uncomfortable to do. Don't like that. The adjuster for the seat backs of the front seats is so close to the centre console that it's really hard to operate it. So you try and turn it, crushes your knuckles every single turn you make. Oh, sod it, I'll just have it like this, even though I'm not comfy. It's not all negative though. Here's 5 good things about this car. Renault gives you a 5-year warranty for the Zoe. Now the battery gets an 8-year warranty or 100,000 miles, whichever comes sooner. The My Renault app allows you to monitor your car remotely using your mobile phone. You can do things like see how much charge you've got left in the battery. You can preheat or cool the car so it's at the right temperature for when you get in it. If you can't find it in a car park, it'll help you locate it, and you can do things like find the nearest charging point and even plan your routes. If you buy a Renault Zoe, ChargeMaster will give you a free 7 kilowatt hour wall charger for your home. And if you charge the car overnight on an Economy 7 tariff, it'll cost just £5 to fully charge up the battery. So that's £5 for 245 miles range. Good. There's ISOFIX here on the front passenger seat, which is handy because while there are 2 other ISOFIX points in the back, which means you can fit 3 child seats in this car, the space to manoeuvre a larger child seat is a bit limited there in the back seat, so you're probably going to use this front seat if you've got one of those big, bulky rear-facing seats. Then of course you are going to have to turn off the front passenger airbag, aren't you, for safety reasons. It's really annoying when these touchscreens get covered in horrible fingerprints like that. But don't worry, Renault gives you a cleaning cloth for it. That doesn't seem to work. I have no idea why. Finally, let's see what the Renault Zoe is like to drive. Starting off with what it's like in town, because after all, that's where electric cars excel. And it's really good in town, actually. So the power delivery is smooth, the steering is light, it's easy. Now, I don't know if you can hear this. There's a weird noise being emitted from the car, which it does at under 20 miles an hour to warn pedestrians that you're approaching, but it sort of sounds like that noise you get in horror films, which builds tension before someone's about to either get killed or someone's going to open a cupboard and a bird will fly out of it and it'll just scare you a bit. Fortunately, you can turn it off if you want to, and then pedestrians won't be able to hear you. So probably best to just leave it on, really. Now, one of the good things about this Renault Zoe is that the turning circle's really, really tight. So it's 10.6 metres, which is better than a Mini electric or a Peugeot E208, so it's easy to do U-turns like that if you need to. One thing to notice is that the brakes can feel a little bit grabby and oversensitive, so you do sometimes end up just like jerking to a halt quicker than you'd probably like. You can put the car into a B mode, which is a braking mode, which means you get more regen braking from the motor, so you can lift off the accelerator and it will slow down without you actually having to touch the normal brakes. The only thing is that you don't get the full effect of that if the battery is over 90% full, which is a bit annoying. Why can't it just work fully? Anyway, the system isn't quite as good as the e-pedal mode you have on the Nissan Leaf, which allows you to actually just drive along completely using the accelerator without touching the brakes at all, because when you lift off with a Nissan, it will even apply the friction brakes, so you can just drive around using the accelerator when you're in town. In fact, if you want to see my full in-depth video review of the Nissan Leaf, click on the pop-out banner up there. One area where I think this car is slightly better than the Leaf is that it just absorbs bumps a touch better. So when you're going over a cobbled street or over potholes like I'm about to now, it's not too bad. You don't get bounced around terribly, although the camera may make it look like I really am, but trust me, that is a pretty bad surface. Yep, it's actually designed for testing tanks, to tell you the truth, so this coped with it okay. Then there's the visibility, which forward is really good. At the back is really good as well, but there is a huge rear pillar, which does make it a bit harder when it comes to parking. It really creates a huge blind spot, so you do absolutely have to rely on your mirrors or the reversing camera if you've got one fitted to the car. How easy is it for a moron like me to manoeuvre? Oh, I'm close at the front. Front parking sensors are helping me out, but look, I did that on one lock. Way! Awesome me. Quite pleased with that. It was easy to park. Now I want the sensors to shut up. Shut up. Good, they've stopped. Anyway, enough of that. Let's see what the Zoe's like when you head out on the motorway. The old Zoe used to feel a bit underpowered when you're out on the motorway, but this new one with the 135 horsepower motor is fine. Look, I'm doing 50 miles an hour. I want to get up to motorway speed or overtake someone, flooring it. Off we go. It's not stellar performance, but it's more than adequate, and there's 70. One thing you do notice though is when you're going quickly at motorway speeds, you get quite a lot of wind noise. That kind of drones on, so you're going to end up turning up the stereo to try and ignore that. Other than that, it's fine for just going up the motorway. And while you can hear the wind noise, you don't get blown about too much by other cars or big HGVs, which is a good thing. Now, part of that is due to this vehicle's weight. So it weighs 1.5 tons. That's because it's got all the batteries in it. Now that's quite a lot heavier than the equivalent Renault Clio. At least the batteries are mounted low down in the floor, which keeps the centre of gravity low, and that is important for handling. Speaking of which, let's see what this Zoe is like when you do encounter a twisty road. The car does lean a little bit in corners. It's not too bad. You don't feel like you're in a listing ship, but it does roll a bit more than some other electric cars. One thing you do notice is that the front tyres soon run out of grip if you start pushing too hard. Also the steering, look at that. It's not the most responsive steering when you're going quicker. It's great in town, nice and light, but when you're going quicker you want it to weight up a bit more and let you know what the front tyres are doing, because actually I have no idea. Oh no, I can tell they're running out of grip now because they're starting to scream going, no, slow down. Yeah, this car isn't particularly fun to drive on a twisty road, but then that's not why you buy it. You buy it for going around town. It's good for that, and it can cope with longer journeys as well. So that's fine, that's good enough for me, and good enough for most people who are going to buy this car. Finally, let's talk about the Zoe's equipment levels. So the range kicks off with the Play, and that gets LED headlights, cruise control, electrically operated and heated door mirrors, plus Android Auto and Apple CarPlay for the 7-inch infotainment system. Next up is the Iconic, and it gets rear parking sensors, which sort of makes the car look like it's got acne. It also gets climate control rather than basic air conditioning. There's wireless charging for the mobile phone, electric rear windows and split folding rear seat bench. Yes, that's right, you don't get electric windows or a split folding bench on the entry-level car, which seems a bit mean. You also get lane departure warning and traffic sign recognition, and the 7-inch touchscreen gets sat-nav as well. At the top of the Zoe range is the GT line, which is what this car is. So as well as rear parking sensors, you get front ones. You also get a reversing camera, which is handy. There's blind spot monitoring as well, and electrically folding door mirrors so that the cars can't knock them off. The biggest change though is this: you get the larger infotainment screen, which is portrait style, so like a tablet. And I like the way that you can have like 2 views on it, so you can have the sat nav and some other functions there, so it's easy to multitask. It's quite easy to whip through different functions using these shortcut buttons, though because they are not actual physical buttons, they're a bit harder to press when you're driving. Now you can go full screen on the sat nav if you want to like that. The screen is a bit laggy, so it's like a phone from about like 5 years ago, but it's all right, and the sat nav is generally okay though. To tell you the truth, you're going to be using the standard fit Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but overall this infotainment system is pretty decent. The standard fit digital dials, which you get on all models, are pretty nice as well, so you can cycle through different menus. So you've got various car information, you've got your music and stuff, your sat nav, and you can change the view to make it widescreen or slightly smaller screen for the sat nav, and then you've got various other information about the car which you can cycle through as well. The only problem with it is it doesn't have any information about your phone, so you have to still be looking on this main main screen to be operating the phone, but overall it's still pretty decent. Now the question is though, which version of the Renault Zoe would I go for? Well, I am going to configure one right now using the CarWow configurator to see what offer I can get back. So if you want to see which Zoe I'd go for and the deal I got on it, click on the pop-out banner up there to go check it out. So then, what's my final verdict on the Renault Zoe? Should you avoid it? Should you consider it? Should you shortlist it? Or should you just go right ahead and buy it? Well, I reckon you should shortlist the Zoe. Now, it is flawed in quite a few areas, but where it matters for electric cars, the range, the value for money, and how it feels to drive, it actually does really well. Do you agree with my verdict? Let me know in the comments section. Also, please subscribe to this channel for more videos, and if you click on the deals box to the right, you can see how much you can save on a new car at CarWow, or click on the video windows below to watch another of my videos.